the Islamic perspective is our salvation is relative to the environment and the information that you have. So not necessarily the case, no. That does not equate to that.
Would it have to assume a greater knowledge of Islam? Like, what would be the knowledge of Islam at which I would be condemned?
Not the knowledge, it's your comprehension. If you...
Okay, the comprehension.
Yeah, your comprehension that God exists and that Muhammad was a messenger. But you might have been... that he was a messenger, the last messenger, for example.
I mean, I'm familiar with that. You know, I did religious studies at school. I have access to the internet. I have some familiarity.
Okay,
with the name
if you're asking where you're going, I don't know. Yeah, that's for God. All I can tell you is theoretically, I can't go into your mind. I can't know your heart. I mean, for all you know that I might be going a different place. We don't know. We're not talking about this.
I'm not lying.
No. I'm not saying you're lying, my friend. I'm not saying. I can just tell you hypothetically that I cannot judge where you're going. That's for God. I can just tell you the theory, and then we'll see what happens. Justice, and yes, it's all very nice. It's all hunky-dory after we die. It does not mean it's true. Agreed. I was not arguing this evening that justice in the afterlife provides evidence that God exists. I was saying if God exists, then we're in a better position than, let's say, atheism. And you can't deny that. Because even if we said that, okay, fine, it's an imagination and we'll just pretend that it's an imagination, psychologically it provides us more resources to live with life, to have hope, to have cosmic hope. And man does need hope. But if we truly do believe that life ends at the grave, it does paint a very bleak picture of our existence. Right? If I were to argue as a Muslim, then I'd just say, look, it says in the Quran that there are trials and tribulations to make me a better human being, and to say that's the end of it. I'm not arguing as a Muslim. I'm arguing philosophically. I'm saying, if God exists, then we can argue, being a possibility, that there are morally sufficient reasons that you're unaware of. Look, let me give you an analogy. May I do that? Yeah, good. Okay. Suppose now we have a room in there. That's a room that, when you open the door, there's an individual in there. And I give everybody in this room an envelope. And on this envelope, there's a piece of information. Right? There's a piece of information on this envelope. You're not allowed to open the envelope until I say so. Now, we ask this brother, we ask him to go in the room first, but he doesn't have the envelope. Only you are privileged, because I like you so much. You have the envelope. So this brother goes into the room, and he sees a man chopping someone's leg off. And the man is screaming. And the person committing this crime, let's say, shows no mercy. He is going all the way. And the blood is squirting everywhere, and it's a horrific scene. He comes rushing out and goes, that's so evil. So evil. How could this be happening? Then I ask everyone else to go in there, and you experience the same horrific scenario, and you come out. All of you are shocked by what you've seen. But then you open the envelope, and it says that the man who is cutting the leg off is a doctor. And the man suffering, he has gangrene on his leg, and if he doesn't cut it off, he will die. Then all of you change emotionally and think, but this brother doesn't have it. He's still saying, it's evil, it's evil. Now, what I'm saying here is that the envelope is God's knowledge. You do not have that. But do you see how knowledge changes everything? It contextualizes the evil and suffering. And my point is, ultimately, you cannot argue that the evil and suffering is pointless. I have to answer his first because we have to be fair, otherwise it would be evil. Yes, often. this kind of objection creates a what's called as a category mistake in philosophy, that having knowledge of future events has no bearing on the category of causation. Just because God knows, it does not necessarily mean he determines by knowing. So it could well be the case that God has foreknowledge and created beings with free knowledge, and that he knows the outcome. Those are not necessarily contradictions. That to claim that there would be a category mistake. That's in a nutshell. Again, you're confusing the point. Yes, it is written, but that's God's foreknowledge, but not causation. There's two separate things. Yeah? Just because it's written, that's to do with God's ability, his power. But that doesn't necessarily logically follow that he causes.
Yeah, but would that not be evil of him to place me in a place that makes me more evil?
No, he does not put you in a place that makes you more... Again, the assumptions are wrong.
Yeah.
Devil's evil. Again, the assumption is wrong. God does not put you in a... Actually, God puts you in a place that the best place to bring out the goodness in you. It's the other way around. But it is you who say, you're like the person who smokes. I don't care, I don't care. The analogy. Okay.
So would the right thing to say to someone be the fact that God has such a power that he's got the ability to know what
yes.
we don't because we're human?
Yes. It's his power, it's his ability. Look, I said to my daughter once, you know what, my daughter is 9 years old, and she actually asked me this question. Yeah? We're eating one day, and I dropped the fork and the knife. I was like, what's going on here? And then she asked me a question, and I said, look, and I tried to break it down to her. I said to her, look, do I know you? My daughter's called Layla. I said, Layla, do I know you? She said, yes, Daddy, you do know me. I said, if we went to the shops, and I said, choose a toy, and would I get it right? She said, yeah, most definitely you would get it right, because you know all the things that I like, and you just know me so well. And I said, go and buy a gift, don't tell me. And I wrote down, and I said to her, did you buy this? And she said, yes. Now, did I cause you to go and do that? No, but I had this ability to know. Inside, because I know you, so I have that ability, right? Now, this is a sort of crude example to give, because what we're dealing with is what we have. We don't have God's infinite knowledge and infinite power. It is infinite insight to know that, right? You must understand this, that the ability to know is does not translate into I caused. Category mistake to say they're one and the same thing. What I would say here is that what we know about the universe now, that it is finite, that it has an origin, and that anyone who believes that the universe has a finite past and has an origin is well within mainstream science. And what we say is that the universe, by definition, must have had a cause because it has a beginning. Because whatever begins to exist needs to have a cause, right? And that cause must be outside of time and space by definition, because the universe has an edge. Because the universe, by definition, is all space, time, and matter. That's just in a nutshell. I think that's a very caricature view of what I was saying. I wasn't saying that religion answers these questions. What I was saying is that if we look at modern science, it actually conforms to the view within religion. I'm not saying we ignore science and we just use religion to argue that God created the universe. I'm saying that modern science, contemporary cosmology, if you like, holds up the view that the universe was created. It's almost a false dichotomy that's assumed within your question, as if there were like this view that it's either religion or science. Well, no, I don't subscribe to that view. I don't think that's a necessary dichotomy that I have to sort of entertain.
It's the fact that you make claims that science has in attempting to answer that. Whereas
Would you believe a scientific claim if it conformed to what a religious book said?
not as a result of religious books saying...
No, I said if a scientific experiment conformed with a fact within a religious text, would you believe in that scientific fact?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're even there. We're doing the same thing. We actually have facts in our religious texts, like the Quran, for example, that are backed up by modern science. And the reality is that the universe has a finite beginning. You cannot deny that. There's by using thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics, that the universe is going to end up in an equilibrium and have a heat death, means that the universe does have an origin, and we haven't got there yet, and it's still going to get there. The many experiments support the fact that the universe has an origin. Your point is, the onus is not on me, because this is your argument. This is the argument from atheism. It is your job to show me that your argument makes sense, not for me to actually sit there and argue for you. Because your claim is that this argument, that the suffering and evil is pointless. How do you know that? Because remember, I'm saying if God exists, there could be a morally sufficient reason. If. Is that logically possible, that statement? Yes, perfectly logically possible. Perfectly logically, but just take my word for it. It's perfectly logical. Now, I've done my job as a theist. The atheist has that burden that he has to show that it is not morally sufficient to have the evil of suffering. So we must not shift the burden on the theist here, because then we would be intellectually insincere. It is your task. Now, if I said that God exists, for example, then I would have to argue and give some positive arguments why God exists. And the arguments would be that God is the best explanation of the universe, etc., etc. So we have to understand that the theist position is a position where he can argue that something is possible. As long as it's possible, then he is in a safe place. It is the task of the atheist, the task of the person who believes in the problem of evil, to show that it actually equates to what they're saying. It's not my task. It's not my task. Yeah?
about this.
Yeah. Okay. You see, this is the problem. This is why I said in the outset that this is an atheist argument. I'm not arguing that God is good because I can see good in the world, and this brother's going to pay for my dinner after this lecture. Yeah?
You'll be lucky.
Yeah? I'm not arguing that. But what the atheist is doing, and I'm not picking anyone, I'm just saying the atheist, I'm just acting as the atheist. He's saying evil, 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 evil. Oh my God, there's no God. I'm not saying God is good because I see good, 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 good. I have different arguments for that. The argument of objective morality, that's something else. Do you see? There's a subtle difference there, but it has a profound effect on the argument. Look, I'm saying, if God exists, if, it's a conditional statement, if, I'm saying if he exists, we cannot exclude that he has morally sufficient reason for the evil in the world. I'm not saying that evil is justified because God exists. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if he exists, we cannot exclude the possibility that God has morally sufficient reasons for the evil and suffering in the world because of a greater good. You can't exclude that. Otherwise, you would have to be God to know that. That's going a bit too far.
We send murderers to prison or not?
If your question is to do with what's the basis of morality, I find it very difficult to establish the existence of morality if God does not exist. Because from a theistic perspective, the idea that we know that murder is wrong, we can all appreciate it, and it is actually okay, let me think of it like this. Is morality a matter of fact? Put your hands up if you think it's a matter of fact. That good and evil exist. The question, is this bottle here, or is that bottle hard, is that a matter of fact?